In today's business world, being an average CEO is no longer an option. That's why we're committed to equipping you with the resources and the tactics necessary to not just survive, but to thrive. You're listening to Not Your Average CEO Lifeline podcast, where we are more than just a voice in the crowd.
Rick, thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited to get to talk to you about emotional intelligence, and also something that I'm sure that most of our audience members have not heard about, but Ikigai in leadership. So thank you so much for being here. To kick off, can you tell our audience briefly about yourself?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on the show, Danielle. Now, before I start, I'd quickly like to share a core belief that I hold dear, which might give a nice framing to things. I believe that we all have the potential to be what I call architects of change. Because in this world that we live in, which is really all about constant transformation, our task isn't just to keep up, but it's to actively shape the path forward. Now, when people look at me, I started stacking shelves and learning the ropes of people management as a trainee in a supermarket in the UK. Yes, I'm afraid to immersing myself in the more precise world of accounting. I'm a bean counter, and later navigating the constantly evolving landscapes of tech and humans. So my story really demonstrates the power of transformation and continuous learning and the significant impact that I believe each one of us can make. Our, every day, our actions, whether they're big or small, they do shape our future. And as we discuss things today, like Ikigai and emotional intelligence, I want everybody listening to remember this. You are your brand, and every decision you make is part of the unique story you're crafting for yourself. How you react, how you adapt, and how you innovate in the face of all of these crazy change will define your story and your legacy. And it's this belief inspiring each one of us to aim for what I call balanced fulfillment is the cornerstone of my work. It's actually my purpose. So as we dive into our conversation today, Danielle, let's not just think about adapting to change, but about how we can define it. After all, when we all embrace our unique abilities, and yes, we all have them, and strive for personal growth, we're not just participants, but catalysts in our ever-changing business at unusual world. So let's get started. Let's get back to the question you asked me to introduce myself. Yeah, I sort of touched on several things there. I am a Brit. Um, I am a bean counter, a chartered accountant by training. I've been doing that for decades. But I'm also a serial entrepreneur. I've started multiple companies. I'll only maybe talk about the ones that still alive and succeeding, rather than the ones that we forget about, but we learn about them, don't we? I'm also a coach. I'm an author. Um, yeah, that sort of summarizes me a little bit. And I'm obviously not American. I'm a Brit. And I spend about 75% of my time in what I call now home, which is Switzerland, and the other 25% in Vietnam, where I spent the previous 25 years.
Yes, so you're a global entrepreneur. Yes. So I know that that you have many areas of expertise, which is why we were so excited to have you on today. But I'd love to just start by talking about emotional intelligence. And
Okay.
one of the things that you say is that it is often a missing piece for executives that are otherwise really highly skilled and educated and well trained, but they're missing that emotional intelligence piece. So, can you talk about that in a leadership context for us and why it's so important?
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you must have an experience. Um, However, one of the challenges is what does that actually mean? Okay. And I think it's really as we go through the different elements of it, or the different dimensions of emotional intelligence, but we begin to put the picture together. Or rather, as I go through them, I'm going to say something, and people are going to go, huh? That's emotional intelligence. That's the missing piece, if I touch on it. Um, Now, one of the dimensions of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. We're supposed to know ourselves. And by that, we really mean is we need to be aware of our own feelings, our own moods. We need to know what pushes our buttons, uh, and and what's really around the self-awareness is being the way of being aware of how we are and how the way we are, those feelings, those moods, okay, um, those emotions, how they impact our decisions, our behavior, and therefore our performance. So when you're saying then it's, in the context of leadership, there's certain things that really, really get my hackles up. I'm going to react quite strongly about them. But I need to be very, very aware of that because when I get triggered like that, maybe I'm not quite in control and I come out maybe very aggressively about it. Okay. And that is going to impact other people. So if you're looking at, okay, it's all very well what self-awareness needs, but what are the extremes? What's a more productive use of that? That's one end of the scale. Or what's the sort of dark side? What's the very unproductive side of it? So self-awareness to be productive, of that, this dimension of emotional intelligence is we're very present. Okay, I'm aware of of uh, of my moods and what I'm feeling, and depending on how I feel, I need to be very conscious of that because it could impact my behavior. So today, for me, it's like 4:45 in the evening. I've had a bit of a tough day, and I could talk for more than a day of all the things that went wrong today and what could be really angry and annoyed. Okay, but I'm on this podcast. I'm aware that I've been a little bit wound up today, but I've got to control that. I'm put it aside. Okay, otherwise I'm not going to come across very well, am I? So the the unproductive side of self-awareness is being disconnected. So productive is I am aware of my feelings, okay, and I'm being present, okay, I'm trying to control them. If I was not aware of my feelings, if I didn't have that self-awareness, I'd be letting that anger or what happened earlier in the day leak out into our conversation. And it's not going to be a very nice conversation. It's going to be a little bit unproductive. Now, the second thing is self-management. Okay, I'm aware of my feelings and moods and feelings, but how do I manage them? Okay, can I manage those emotions effectively in different situations? Okay, if I can, it means I'm showing resilience. Okay, so that's the positive, productive side of emotional intelligence. If I can't, it means I'm going to be temperamental, moody. Yeah. So I know that I've had a tough day. I know a few things have wound me up. It's got absolutely nothing with the podcast we're doing on now. It's actually something else. So I need to exercise emotional intelligence by managing those feelings, put them aside, and be present. Okay, for this session. Okay, so that was the second aspect of emotional intelligence. What's the third one? The third one is awareness of others. Okay. What we're talking about there as the leader is about perceiving and understanding and acknowledging the way others feel. Okay. And the productive side of that is being empathetic. So maybe as an example, Danielle, I didn't ask you how your day was going, but maybe you had a terrible day. Maybe things have gone wrong, on your way into work, people have cut you off, somebody even like tailgated you or something. No, none of this is your fault. And you could just be like, all right. As the leader, I need to be aware that you are having a bad day. I need to be empathetic to that and adjust that rather than say, "Hey Danielle, you had these targets that were supposed to be met today, and you're an hour late into work, and blah 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 blah." I'm completely being non-empathetic or being insensitive to your feelings. Okay, as the leader, I need to be sensitive to that. Okay, so not only do I need to be aware of my own moods and feelings, I need to control them. Okay, but as the leader, I need to be aware of, are you having a bad day? And if you are, I need to adjust. It's not an excuse for me. Hey, I can be annoyed too. No, that would not be good. That's already
Right.
3 dimensions, but there are more. I'm only halfway. There's another one. It's authenticity. Okay. We've heard a lot about leadership, how you need to be an authentic leader. You need to be a genuine person, and that's really being open and effectively expressing oneself, honoring commitments, okay, and encouraging this behavior in other people. Okay, so it's being open and honest to mistakes. Again, from a leadership perspective, it's really being genuine. On the non-productive side, if you're not being authentic, if you're not being genuine, you're going to be perceived as untrustworthy. So, do you really want to be perceived as that? So that's four. And yet, there's another one, there's a fifth one. Okay. There's a thing called emotional reasoning. So, it's about using the information in feelings, not just from myself, but from others. Okay. And combining it with other facts that we're collecting and the information we can find and using all of that in decision making. Okay. So, for example, I know I've had a bad day. I know I've got angry about things. I know I became earlier today very short tempered and irritable. Okay. So, am I at my top of my game? No. I'm running less than I'm capable of. Now, if you, Danielle, had this terrible morning and been tailgated and all these things, you're you're not in the right place. You're not running at 100, no matter how you try. So if we're trying to make decisions together and do stuff, none of us are playing our A game. Okay. And maybe we come up with a good decision now, which is actually quite a terrible decision. Okay. And maybe tomorrow, when we're both having a great day, we would have made a completely different decision. So this is how that emotional reasoning comes into it. And again, I'm sorry, as the business leader, if you're going to display that emotional intelligence, you've got to be an ambassador of it. So you've got to like accommodate the other people as well, because don't expect other people to be expert at this. That's not how it goes. You've got to be prepared to help others. And the last one, the very, very last one of the 6 different dimensions is positive influence. Okay. And this is all about um, positively influencing the way that other people feel through your problem solving, through the interaction with them, through providing feedback with them, through recognizing what they're doing and supporting their work. So it's really, you can say, by inspiring performance. You're really empowering other people. Okay. So in an interaction with another person, you have to display all 6 of these, demonstrate all 6 of these aspects of emotional intelligence. And just imagine that if you are that leader, it's a very present leader who's self-aware. They're empathetic. Okay. They're genuine, they're authentic. You trust them. All right. They're adjusting for all of these emotions of themselves and the people around them. Okay, so the decisions made are better, they're more ethical. They're controlling their emotions. Even when they're having a bad day, they're not letting that leak out and affect anyone else. They're very resilient. And on top of that, They're empowering the people around them and lifting them up. Wow. I want to work with that person.
Yes, yes. That is all very helpful. I know at the top of our podcast, we talked about that we would talk about emotional intelligence, and then we
Okay.
would also talk about ikigai, which is a term
Okay.
um, that I was unfamiliar with,
Mhm.
and so I'm assuming every. So, for those who are unfamiliar with the term, can you explain what ikigai is, and then how it resonates with a business's decision making?
Okay. Well, ikigai is a Japanese word, and there are two parts to the word. It's coming from the verb ikiru, okay, and the suffix gai. All right. So the verb ikiru means to live, and the gai bit means value. So you combine them together into the single word ikigai. It means the value of living. Okay. So that's a very literal explanation of what it is. So how do we define it? Well, the person, there's a lady called Mieko Kamiya, who's obviously Japanese, and she's really known as the mother of Ikigai psychology. And one of the first researchers done all sorts of wonderful things. And we sort of use her definitions as a greater definition. And she says there are two sides, or there are really two definitions of Ikigai. Something can be a source of ikigai. So that's one sort of side of ikigai. And the other one is an ikigai feeling. Okay. So, for example, when someone says, this child is my ikigai, this new baby is my ikigai, right? That's a source of ikigai. So how do we put that into a leadership context? Well, if you're an entrepreneur, this company, this is my baby, is the source of my ikigai. So that's the source, just like a baby is. Right. Now, when we're talking about how do we feel ikigai as a state of mind, all right, that's actually called Ikigai Khan, but it's still another definition of it. It's again, let's go back to the baby. All right, this child is my Ikigai. How does that child make me feel? You know, if that's a newborn, okay, so for those about you who've had kids, remember that newborn, it's like, you just look at it and like, oh, your heart's overflowing, right? Okay. To the entrepreneur, it can be exactly the same. I'm so proud of my company, and what I've done, and I've taken it from nothing, rags to riches story, and we conquered whatever thrown at us. It's wonderful. It just makes you feel, wow, so good. That's a real feeling. Okay. So then two sides to the ikigai. One definition is the feeling it gives, and the other one is the source of that feeling. So just like this child is my ikigai, this company is my ikigai, that's the source, and how it makes you feel is just your state of
Yeah, I love it. I love it. There's something I haven't heard of, and like I said, I assume others haven't as well. Um, so, how can someone, a leader's personal ikigai, how can that influence the culture, the direction of their
mind.
entire company? How does that happen?
Well, just imagine, just like just a child can be a source of the ikigai and give you that ikigai state of mind. Into that entrepreneur, it's their baby, it's their company. All right. So how do you think they're going to react if somebody's trying to do something bad to it? If someone's trying to hurt their company, what are you going to do? Just like a parent, someone tries to help one of your kids. Sure. How are you going to react to that? Okay, so if we take it to an extreme, you're going to be very, very strong about anything that's going to negatively affect your child. Okay, so for a business leader, we need to be careful as well because it isn't a child; it's actually a company. It's not a person; it is a company, and it may feel to you that it is your child, but I'm sorry, it actually belongs to the whole company. You might have given birth to it. It might have been your You might have been the founder of it, and it may have been your idea. You may even be the driving force behind it. But it's not a one-man show. There are lots of other, or there could be lots of other people in the company as well. And the success of the company is collectively raising it. So it takes a village to raise a child, right? So it's the same type of thing. So we have to be careful about the company and how strongly we feel about it. It isn't your child, really. Okay. So it's important to, or how that business leader feels about the company, if the company is the Ikigai. All right. And the way that they feel is the way that they feel. That gives them that Ikigai state of mind. However, there are other people in the company, employees. They're not founders. They're not co-founders. They're not even shareholders. They're people who work there. But maybe the same company also gives them Ikigai for different reasons. Okay. So I can look at Ikigai slightly different, as that, in order to experience and get that feeling of Ikigai, there are some different needs that need to be satisfied. Okay. And there are actually 7 of them that she talks about. And I'll touch on them. One of them is the need for life satisfaction. Okay. So again, if you relate it to the company, do people get satisfaction out of working for the company? Or is it just a job that pays the mortgage? Okay. The need for change, which we can interpret as growth. So by working in your company, are you growing people? Do people feel that they're growing? Okay, they either are or they're not. The other one is the need for a bright future. So is the company, has it got a great vision? Can the individual see a fantastic career path in your company? The need for resonance. Okay, so when people work there, are they really engaged? They're usually engaged because they're resonant with the company. They're in line with the values of the company. They like what the company does. They maybe love what the company does. They love what they do there. Okay, there's that sense of resonance. The need for freedom. That's a tricky one. Okay, so how much leeway do you give people within the company? Do you allow them to make mistakes? Okay, because if it makes mistakes, it means usually you make mistakes if you are stretching things. So if you're growing and you're stretching, going out of your comfort zone, trying new things, experimenting, trying to grow, is that a safe space in your company? That gives you that sense of freedom. Okay. The need for self-actualization. Okay, that's that leads to sort of mass virus, isn't it? But it's important because that's the sort of the pinnacle of things. So is the company fulfilling all your other needs before that? So again, it's usually linked to growing and being in your own values and your own goals and your own purpose being in alignment with the company. And finally, and I guess it's a bit obvious, it's the need for meaning and value. So does working in your company actually give people meaning? Okay, you have all of those and you will feel and you will get that Ikigai state of mind. So it's not just one thing, it's lots of different things.
As our last question, we brought you on the show because our show is titled "Not Your Average CEO." We certainly thought that you fit that bill. We'd love to hear in a few words, what that phrase means for you.
Okay, not your average CEO. I guess that pick it up on not your average bear or not your average person.
Yes.
To me, it means somebody who's different. Somebody's who, if you don't want to use the word different, this may be special. But the word that I would use would be someone who's a bit unusual. And unusual can be however you look at it.
Yes, very true. Very true. Well, thank you so much, Rick. We will include information in the show notes about how to find you, how folks can connect with you. And we really appreciate you being here today. I personally learned a lot, and I think our audience will as well.
Yes, thank you very, very much, Danielle. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm really, really grateful for that. And just as we close, remember, everyone listening, we are not just a participant in this ever-changing world, but we are architects shaping the course of our lives and our careers and the world around us. And I encourage you all to embrace change and define it, not just adapt to it. Be that catalyst in your own business as unusual world. Be that, not your average CEO. Okay, the transformation really begins with you, and I'm so eager to hear more about your journeys.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you again, Rick, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Not Your Average CEO Lifeline with your hosts Danielle Cuomo, CEO, and Nicole Gallicchio-Elz, COO. This podcast has been sponsored by Virtual Assist USA. If you'd like to know more about the hosts or exploring virtual assistant services, visit virtualassistusa.com for more information.